welcome to a brand new episode of Black Tech Unplugged. I have Lisa G on the podcast today. Lisa, you are a familiar face though, because we did the podcast episode, which was episode 45, when we talked all about DEI and did that for Southwest. But I'm so happy to have you back and tell your story.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Yes. And so, like I said, we talked about DEI. For anyone who's a newbie, go back and check out episode 45 where we kept it real there. But this is going to be more about your tech journey and your experiences. So, to kick off, want to have you do a quick introduction of yourself as the techie that you are. So, go ahead and introduce yourself to the listeners.
Hi, everyone. I'm Lisa G, CEO, founder of Tech. I've been in tech the past 20 years, holding several roles from software engineer to landing up in my passion of product management, building out products from 0 to 1, scaling for exponential growth. I've been at the New York Times, consulting for the past decade. I've worked across many other media companies. Building out products and apps, one of my most awarded possessions have been the NCAA March Madness app for iPhone that I build. Currently in March is March Madness season. So that's one of my key things that I always like to reminisce on. And yeah, I have a platform called Tech that help people um, navigate the tech industry, but then there's also the agency side component where we offer our services to businesses to whether build and grow apps or product management, project management for Fortune 500 companies and government organizations.
Well, I'm glad you mentioned all of that because we're going to touch on every little piece of that in today's episode. But I want to start off today's conversation because, when we talk, we keep it real and we often talk about tech and what it means to be in tech, right? So there's a lot of people in the tech industry who are like, I'm in tech, but they really aren't. So I want to start today by talking about what does it mean when you say you're in tech?
Ooh, that's a hot topic. We may ruffle some feathers with this one. You know, it's, I'm trying to choose my words carefully here. So, there's always people who say, I'm in tech, and they're always the first ones to grab a mic and want to speak and talk about being in tech and what it means to be in tech. And then when you say, well, hey, what do you do? Like, what is your role? And
Mhm.
they're like, oh, I'm in sales at Google. Okay, that is a tech company. You're
Right.
selling or you're helping sell technical software,
Mhm.
but are you really a techie? You know, that could be highly offensive to people such as myself or you who are actually in tech and has built products, especially for me, like getting my first start as a software engineer, you're building the product.
Right.
So you can be a part of the tech ecosystem and say
Mhm.
you work in tech, but you should not be the one saying, I'm in tech, I'm in tech, I'm in tech. You're part of the tech ecosystem. Yes, we need people to sell the software. Yes, we do. But
Right.
to be in tech, we need you in those trenches. Meaning, what have you built? What project have you streamlined? Have you did the budget to know what it builds? To build an entire product? Yes.
Mhm.
Have you been in that product management roundabout to figure out like talking to customers, how are we building it from zero to start? How are we
Customer
but
feedback. Customer
right,
feedback is a big
customer
one.
feedback. You know, are you building with the customer focus in mind? So sometimes some of these roles are and people who say I'm in tech, I like to think about it. And my first question is say, oh, what have you built? And they're
Mhm.
like, oh, what do you mean by that? What have you built? That is my question. Because when
Very,
you say
very
that
just like straightforward question there. What have you built?
yeah, same, very straightforward. What have you been a part of that you've built? So,
Right.
because we get a lot of people who are marketers. And don't get me wrong, there are some core technical marketers that I absolutely love. And yes, I will consider them. Some of them are tech. Yes, because you have to be able to have that deep knowledge to go into really market these products. You
Right.
can be a core technical marketing person, but usually those aren't the people who's the first that's calling themselves techies either. It's usually the people that's the marketing manager that's just doing the rollout of a campaign at a tech
Mhm.
company. And it's like, that's really not tech, you guys. I
Mhm.
like to consider tech is what have you built? What have you been a part of that you have actually built out a product?
Right. And you know what? You mentioned that you've had a lot of roles in tech, starting with like software engineering, you've done quality assurance, and then ultimately ended up in the product manager realm. So I want to break down one, how you transition to all of those roles, because while they're all related, because like you said, there's an ecosystem. So you're kind of passing off to one or the other role anyway. But
Mhm.
how did you even make the switch from like going from software engineer to like quality assurance and then ultimately ending up in product management?
So, as a software engineer, it's still near and dear to my heart, but I decided that I never wanted my paycheck to depend off of it,
Mhm.
simply because there's a gap. There's a gap between business analysts, product management, people who are on the business side of tech. There's a large gap between the core technical people and the business side of technology. And no one knows how to properly communicate to the technical people. They're like, we want this product that does X, Y, Z. And we're like, wait, that doesn't exist. Like the technology doesn't exist to even build it. What are you talking about?
Right.
So I figured it's time for me to step out of this software engineering space, and I want to be that person on the business side to be able to say, hey, this can actually be done. Let's break it down for engineers to be able to build this. Or I want to be the person in the room to say, are you stupid? This technology doesn't exist.
Now, what
So
made you want to do that though? Because that's like a mind shift. Like your mental when you're a software engineer and then like having to do the business side of it, that's a complete mind shift, completely different attitude you need to bring to the job. So what made you want to do that? Just because of your previous experience?
yeah, it was the frustration. It was the frustration that was like, wait, there's a gap here. It's not clicking to these people on the business side. I want to be that change agent to make it click so that these business people aren't always looking like idiots in front of the engineers, because most software engineers do think business side, they look at them as complete idiots. They're like, this is so stupid. This will never work. And I was like, I got tired of being that person of saying like, what are they thinking? So I'm like, let me make the switch. So I decided to go into quality assurance after software engineering because quality assurance is a role that is so slept on.
Mm,
And
mm,
I will always advocate for quality assurance because that is a role that if you really want to know every part of the software development lifecycle, that is the role you need to be in because you're working with the project managers, you're working with analysts, you're working with the engineers. You are literally working with everyone to make sure that you can even test this item.
right.
So it gives you a full bird's eye view of taking a product from zero as an idea to execution. So, transitioning into quality assurance really gave me that insight because in my mind, I'm like, I'm missing pieces of the puzzle are missing here. I need to figure out how to bring this puzzle all together. And I know that I'm not able to do that just as a software engineer. And I know as an engineer, some people may think, well, wait, you took a step back to go into soft QA, but I needed to know the full cycle of like what's happening in the rooms that engineers aren't invited to. And usually quality assurance is invited because usually when it's coming up with an idea, they're wanting quality assurance to start writing test cases of how can this be potentially even tested. So I decided I want to be in those rooms. I want to be in those conversations. And to be honest, the easiest way for me to make that transition was for me to be into quality assurance. Yes, my quality assurance experience was a little bit more technical because I was able to do scripting to like automation because I was an engineer. So like that gave me, an advantage. It wasn't just like regular quality assurance. I was a core technical quality assurance person.
Mm,
And then once I got that role down packed, I went into leadership and quality assurance, building out quality assurance teams. I was a director. And then I said, it's time to make that big leap.
Mm.
It's time to go full on to the business side. I'm going over to product management. And I put myself out there. And I will say, I feel like it took me advocating for myself the transferable skills because there's another issue within tech. HR don't have it all either. Like
Right.
they don't understand the transferable skills amongst each role within the tech ecosystem and how it can be transferred to another position. So I literally went into HR and built my case of I have done XYZ, and this is what a product manager does. So if I can do that here, I can elevate it as a product manager. And I literally had to spell that out for HR, and they took a chance on me.
Question, because in those situations, just like as a regular person, for instance, if I was you and I'm going from quality assurance to product, but I'm trying to go to an external role. So let's say I'm like working for you now, but I'm trying to work for myself later. I don't have the opportunity to sometimes get in the room with HR and break it down for them to actually see. So what advice do you have for someone that's trying to make a leap like that, but they don't have the exact connection to actually do that, face to face, or just to be able to go walk into HR and have that conversation?
So I will say you need to highlight those transferable skills on your resume. So if your resume has been quality assurance, listing those quality and attributes that are key to being a product manager needs to be highlighted on your resume. Then I'm not a fan of cover letters, but when you're transitioning, you need a cover letter because, someone may look at your resume and say, "Oh, you have X amount of years of quality assurance. Where's this coming from? You're applying for this." So you need to have that cover letter stating that, your transferable skills, you're looking to transition into product management. So that cover letter is going to be important. And that's the only time I vouch for a cover letter. When you're trying to transition into a role that you've never had that title before,
Yeah.
is that's when those cover letters come into play. Typically, what I like to advise as well, if you know someone that's already in the exact role that you want, having one-on-ones and informationals with them, because typically someone on the inside of a company or someone in a role that you've already you're already in, or that you're expiring for, to say, I'm interested in becoming a product manager. What can I do? Because typically what happened is when people would come to me and say, hey, I'm looking for XYZ, I would say, oh yeah, we're looking for someone junior level to come in and do this. Let me pitch you. So
Mm,
it's really all about utilizing your network as well too. When you don't have the opportunity to sit down with HR, when you've written that cover letter for transitioning, looking to the people that are already in those roles, um, to kind of like guide you and put them on, be on their radar or their map to say like, okay, I know that this person is looking for to break into product. When we have a junior role, I'm going to think of them. So it's always about utilizing your network as well, reaching out to the people who are in the roles that you want.
right. And let's keep it a buck. Like, how many people in HR do you think are really reading those cover letters, or even
Whew.
the hiring manager? I mean, I'm just keeping it real right now.
Well, I feel like the cover letter gets you through the AI system that they use to filter you out. Because sometimes, you get the immediate denials. I
Right.
feel like the cover letter gets you through the system. Now,
Hmm.
if they're going through reading them all, that's tough. Are we talking about this day and age or back in the day?
Oh no, this day and age, because we're not going back. I'm just saying, times have changed, even in the
Times have
past.
changed
Oh,
and the market is
ooh,
horrible right now.
yes.
I've been speaking with different recruiters and like a role will be posted for 2 days and they've gotten 700 applicants. So
Woo.
even when your resume matches, it's hard. It is extremely hard for, right now HR or, recruiters to go through 700 applicants.
Right.
So what's been happening, and I'm not sure if every company is doing this. This is just one, well, not one, a few companies in particular that I've been talking with. they've had to hire external recruiters to go out and find them because they're like, I'm not going to look through these 700 applicants. You're this headhunter. Go bring us back the 10 best candidates, and that's when we'll look through them.
Wow. Wow.
So, right now, the market is such volatile. Like, I don't know
Mhm.
if they're reading through anybody's application, to be fair, in all fairness.
I mean, it's fair, but that's like kind of bad.
It is bad because what's happening, especially in tech, I feel like tech is a little bit behind on the layoffs per se. When COVID happened, all these companies start laying off, everybody got the layoffs. These layoffs just hitting tech now.
Right.
And it's
Right.
ugly. It's ugly.
Right.
So I don't know why we had such the delay, but we're feeling the effects of them layoffs now from COVID. So thinking about it from a holistic standpoint, a big company, I don't want to name names, but just say a big Fortune 500 company, they're used to having a staffed up HR department. Let's say they have 20 recruiters recruiting across the tech ecosystem. These
Mhm.
layoffs now, they probably got like 3 recruiters, but they're still hiring for certain roles. Who's going through all these applications? It's
Right.
it's a lot. So I just think right now we are not in the best times
And
to
let's dive deeper into that a little bit. So first off, so let's start with like the recruiter side, right? So then companies will keep hiring all these recruiters. And then when the slow period comes, we're going through another layoff because you done hired all these extra people, these extra hands to help you, and now you don't need them. So on the
right.
recruiter front, I would be upset too because it'd be like, okay, so you didn't hire me to do your dirty work, and now we're here.
Yeah, now we're here. You're telling me to post a junior software engineering role. It got posted 24 hours ago and I have 600 applicants. How am I supposed to go through 600 applications?
Right, right. And they're just like, oh, figure it out. That's why we
Yeah.
hired you. Like, do what you can do. And it's like, okay, wait a minute.
Yeah, it's kind of one of those things, and I really hate to say this. It's like, may the fastest person win, because I feel like I feel like if you didn't submit within like them first couple of hours that role was posted,
Mm-hmm.
may not get seen.
Wow. Okay,
That's
that
the and you're like I said, and your resume could match exactly. It's
right,
just that
right.
we're in a tumultuous times right now with the market, especially in tech. Now, once it gets better, because I have hope
I have
that it
hope.
gets that it gets better when we return to like a normal job market. That's when I feel like your resumes and things get seen. But right now, the market is just dirty. Whew.
Right. It's dirty and it well, another piece of that too is though, because there's so many applicants who are applying for these jobs, they're applying quick. Like let's just say a day or two with them being posted. From a hiring perspective, it's going to end up badly too because sometimes you're not seeing the best candidates. The people you're bringing in are going to not be a great fit. And then we're going to have to go through layoffs again.
Yeah, yeah. Let me just I'm very transparent. It all starts from upper management in my perspective because I feel like upper management sometimes is so out of touch of what's needed. And they bring in these people or they bring in their friends
Right.
and it doesn't work out. And then we're going through these reorgs again. But if you actually got somebody who actually knows what's going on. And I feel like the people who really know what's going on are sometimes middle management. Like that person that has been there from the ground up and has worked their way to middle management, where they
Mhm.
see all the fuckery. They see it, they know it, they embody it,
Oof.
they're surrounded by it.
Right.
But oftentimes middle management is not heard.
Right. Exactly.
So you're just kind of stuck fumbling in this wheel of like making these suggestions, but it's never making it to the C-suite. It's never making it to upper management. And you just see all the mistakes happen over and over and over again. So, it really starts with management and their decisions, to be very honest with you.
I mean, you're not telling any lies, but unfortunately, from the positions we're in, we can't make those decisions. Like, we don't affect those decisions. But I'm glad that we're talking about it and being transparent about it, because a lot of people are still shying away from the conversation. But there's also
Yeah.
one last piece I want to touch around the whole layoff situation is, like you said, you mentioned tech layoffs like came later. But do you think that the tech layoffs really didn't happen during the pandemic because they shouldn't have happened? Or do you think there's maybe something a little bit more behind why tech layoffs are really happening?
I don't want to sound like a conspiracy theorist, but there's something else going on that we just don't know.
Mm.
I don't know what it is, but there's something else going on. Because how is everybody's unemployed?
Right. And here's my thing though, everybody's unemployed, but where are those unemployed people supposed, like, what is everybody supposed to be doing right now?
Right. What is everybody supposed to be doing right now? And it's what the thing that is the most irritating, because I have so many people coming to me saying, well, we see this job opening on your company site. Like, and we've applied, and like it's still up there 30, 45 days later. So I think a lot of these companies sometimes aren't really hiring. They're
Oh,
ghost positions to make it seem like,
really?
oh yeah, everything's fine over here. No, it's not. I know y'all just laid off. That's internal information that clearly maybe is not known to the public eye. But
Yeah,
then you're out here hiring these people, posting that you're hiring.
right.
You're not even doing interviews, or you will conduct the interviews and won't hire nobody.
Wow. Wow.
So it's something else happening that's going on, and I don't like it because I hate to see so many of my peers unemployed, especially great people, great talent. Um, and I just don't know. Or like what I've been seeing too from the layoff is these people who work at these big tech companies,
Mm-hmm.
making three, $400,000 plus upward,
Mm-hmm.
laid off, rollback posted for 175. Whoa, who's about to do all this work at half the salary?
Right. Well, you know
So
who will do it though? Someone who's just, sometimes you're just unaware, right? You don't know how much the previous person was making. So an unaware person would do that.
yeah, yeah, it's
But
it's it's
still that
crazy.
cut.
Yeah,
That's
it's that cut. I've seen it. I've personally witnessed it with one of my contracts. Yeah, like I was making XYZ amount for one of my contracts that I was working with the company. They wanted to bring me back a couple of months ago, but was like, "Oh yeah, this is what the rate that we would bring you." That was half. No, that was half of what this work was doing. And this actually required me to think and fumble through data. I'm not gonna do that.
no, 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 not for half the price.
Yeah, not for half the
Not
price.
half
And
the
I was like,
price.
actually, I've doubled my price.
Well, listen, know your worth and always get it.
Yes, add the tax, add the COVID tax
Yes.
too.
Yeah.
That's why it's doubled.
And then no, make them have to return to office, add that tax too. Because then you want to give me less pay, but then you want me to travel to work and pay for transportation. The math
Thank you.
isn't mathing.
It's not mathing. So it's the market's just really ugly right now.
Yeah. But to go back to what you were saying from your job role perspective of like moving from different positions, we were talking transferable skills. I want you to tell my listeners from your software engineering role to product management, and you can even throw in quality assurance in between. What are some of the transferable skills that you use for all of those roles?
I think being technical will always triumph anything. Being that I have core technical skills, um, I can tell you how something needs to be built. I can tell you how it needs to be tested. I can tell you if it's buildable. So I feel like my core technical experience has really gave me a lot of leverage over my competitors of when I'm going for jobs or when I'm going for contracts, because I have that core technical experience. So that's going to always be a transferable skill. Um, Working from quality assurance, I'm able to say, I know how to write these business requirements, these user stories, because as these user stories are getting written, a quality assurance person is supposed to be writing a test case or a test plan.
Hmm.
So typically they're in those rooms saying, hey, I know how to write test plans and test cases. This is similar to writing out user stories because I have to be able to understand the user story to be able to write the test plan.
Right.
So, some of those things are like the transferable skills of being able to say from quality assurance to product management. Um, the communication. Communication is very important because what I will say, most software engineers aren't extroverted. As hard as it may be believed, I'm very introverted. And people are like, "What do you mean you're introvert?" And I was like, "Yeah, I really don't talk unless I need to. If I'm talking about tech, yes, I can talk all day long, but I'm really introverted. So, but when it comes to things that I'm passionate about building, I can hold the conversation all day long. So, being that key communication, that one that's not afraid to raise my hand, speak up, ask questions, or advocate um, that really helped me become the transferable skills too, because closed mouths don't get fed. Nobody would have known I wanted to transition skills if I didn't speak up and say, this is why I want this. So I was able to say, there's a gap in between business and tech, and I want to be the change agent to be able to say that. So being able to use my voice and speak up for myself was very important because oftentimes people say, oh, I want to transfer into XYZ, and I'm like, well, why? That's usually the first question when you come and sit down and have like a consultation with me. Why do you want to transition into this particular role? What has interested you? And then it's like building that and being able to vocalize that so that it's really a sales pitch. You have to sell
Mhm.
yourself.
Right.
If you can't sell yourself, then why should I hire you?
Exactly.
So those are like some of the top transferable skills that help me along the way of being able to really navigate between the two roles. Like I said, finding those similarities and then leveraging those similarities between all of the roles and really advocating for yourself.
And Lisa, you took all of these skills, all of your experience, and you turned it into a business with You Are Tech. So
Yep.
I want you to tell my listeners more about You Are Tech. What does it do? What does it offer for people who are looking to get into tech?
So, as I mentioned earlier, UR Tech is dual focus. We have something for the consumer side of people who want to get into tech, uh, but kind of don't know where their niche is because the tech ecosystem is wide. It's wide. It's a wide range of many different avenues that you can go,
Mhm.
and you can oftentimes get lost, especially if you're like, "Hey, I'm in core IT. How do I come over to the software side of things?"
Right.
So you oftentimes get lost, and I'm like, I got asked so much for advice on how can I go from here to here? What are my steps? What does that look like? So I decided to create a business from it to help people navigate the tech ecosystem. I even authored a journal that's like a 12-step prompt for each month, complete a prompt, or you can do two a month, a prompt to really help you nail down what it is you're trying to achieve in tech. So following those prompts and through that program, you're able to really make a guided, educated decision on what it is you want to pursue within technology. And then, like I said, I have the agency side of the business where we consult to our corporations, organizations, and government opportunities on digital transformation, building out their apps, coming in with their project, working on project management, really helping them, especially for like government, the digital transformation, because government is still like green screen. Like we
Mhm.
got to come up to the new century. So really helping in that sector as well too. And focusing on growing that sector of focusing more so on organizations, companies, and governments of being their sounding board.
Awesome. And how can people, if they're interested in checking out Your Tech, connect and get more information, especially about the planner? Because even I've used the planner. Shout out because It's very helpful, especially when you're trying to figure out where you want to be on your career track. And that could be like early stages, middle. So, where can people find all the products and just UR Tech in general?
On our website, www.yourtech.com, and it is spelled out Youre Tech, Tech. Because some people will spell it like the letter U and then R. No, we spelling things out around here. You can find us on Instagram as well. All of the socials are the same. You are tech. Yeah. And to learn more about me, I have my website, which is lisag.nyc.
Yep, and I will share all of this in the show notes so you all won't have to look that far and maybe even do a little giveaway of the planner. We'll see what we can work out because I think that,
Yes.
again, that's something if you especially you're just like I don't know where I want to go in my career next, this planner helps you kind of like get out of that stuck or stagnant stage and actually start taking action. So definitely again, highly recommend that. But don't think you're going away that fast. In today's conversation, I want to talk about some of the top tech ideas, concepts, whatever you want to call them, that are happening today. Definitely have to touch on DEI. We're not going to go into
Mm.
too many details because, like I said, you can listen to episode 45, but touch on the topic that everyone says DEI is dying. So, want to get your insights. Do you feel that way too, or what do you think's going on with DEI?
Yeah, it's dead. It's dead.
God,
But
not saying it like that. Just so
I
blunt.
I want to give a quick perspective on why it's dead.
Okay.
Earlier in the conversation, we just said these companies are like struggling. Like we in a tech layout. Like it is
Bare
volatile
minimum,
here.
like
It's bare
bare
minimum.
bones, like that's what we're doing out here.
Right. So I feel like these companies are like, we gotta pay y'all. We have to make make budget. We have to do all these things. D and I ain't on the top of the list right now. We're trying to keep the doors open.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So I'm not saying condone it being dead, but
Right.
I can see why it may not be on the top of the list, especially if you're maybe like a B Corp, it's just like, hey, we're struggling to keep the doors open. Do you
Right.
want a paycheck or do you want us to focus on the DE and I? Like, you
Which
know,
is it?
which is it? So I'm not condoning it being dead. I just think right now, with the market we're in, companies have shifted focus and they shifted their focuses to we got to keep the doors open. We got to keep the company alive right now. We're going to get back to y'all, but
Mm.
let's just get the revenue up.
Yeah, that was gonna be my next question. Do you think it will come back? Do you think it'll make a comeback?
Yeah, it's gonna make a comeback because people are very vocal about it.
Okay.
People are highly upset that their needs aren't being met from a DE&I perspective at these larger corporations. Um, you know, they're staging walkouts, they're doing all sorts of things. And it's definitely going to come back, but I just think companies have to put that back on their roadmap once they get the finances in order.
Okay. And even to your point with the layoffs, if you look at the numbers, over 50% of the layoffs are women or people of color or both. So it's like you kind of have to take a look and be like, this is why we have DEI in the first place because y'all don't know how to make decisions properly. So we have to hold you accountable and have to keep the conversation going. But it is sad to see the drastic shift. But also to that point, when the money's funny, everything else is going to get funny. So I understand why it's in the position that it's in right now.
Yeah, I definitely think it's gonna make a comeback. But this is one of the things I advocate for when I'm mentoring my clients or when I'm at particular companies consulting and I run into, black and brown people always asking me for advice. I'm like, y'all coming to me for me to be the advocator. I
Mm.
appreciate it. I love it. It's great. But you have to start advocating for yourselves as well, because when a layoff come around, they're gonna be like, "Who is that?" We know
Right.
Lisa because Lisa always talking. Lisa's always running her mouth, but we don't know these other people.
Right.
So, I always tell people, let your work speak for itself, but also don't be afraid to start speaking up for yourselves in meetings, making yourself known in a good way. at these companies so that when these layoffs do come around, people see your name on that list and they'd be like, no, 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 we got to keep her.
Hmm.
And that's one of the things that I've told people, like, people always ask, like, well, how have you been a consultant at the New York Times for a decade? They know me. My
Right.
work speaks for itself. I advocate, it's one of those things where when people genuinely see what you do and they like the work that you do, and then they like you as a person,
Hmm.
oftentimes I'm pretty sure my contract probably could have been cut years ago. But it was probably the things that I've done and said for others that make them rethink the, my name being on that list of layoffs. So because I've seen it. When I was staff at other companies, I would be like, "Oh, no, this person's a great person. We should try to keep him XYZ." And they'd be
Hmm.
like, "Oh, you know what? You're right." That's at other companies that I've been at. So people have to be able to advocate for themselves and not be afraid to speak up, because when those layoffs happen, sometimes if they don't know your name, you're the first to go.
Right. You know, when people say be a personality hire, it's
Yeah.
like be the personality hire plus have quality work. I'm not saying don't do your work because like personality only get you so far, but it will get you very far. But you keep mentioning advocating for yourself, and you mentioned some examples of like speaking up for yourself, like letting your work show itself, but then like also talking about your work. Any other like tips or advice coming from you in regards to advocating for yourself?
Um, let's see here. I know, like, a lot of companies, for example, people are always saying, "Well, how can I advocate for myself?" There's not a space or opportunity to do that.
Mm-hmm.
Go with the suggestion to do monthly demos.
Okay.
You know, that's something that I incorporated, at one of my companies that I consult at, because, I felt like a team wasn't getting the proper shine. So, like, let's do some monthly demos to show what this team is actually capable of doing. Because oftentimes, yeah, leadership, they just know the engine keeps going because that's
Right.
what it is. Like, people in tech, we're just the engine that keeps it going. But they don't know and see and actually, see the people who do the work. So come up with creative ideas to be able to showcase your work. Like, say, hey, like, we should do monthly demos, if not monthly, quarterly. Come up with creative opportunities to be able to showcase the work that you're doing, because that shows that you're advocating not just for you, but you're advocating for your team. Because companies will come through and wipe a whole team off the map.
Oh, a whole team without hesitation.
A whole
And
team
just be like,
gone.
oh, like, sorry. And then what do you left to do? Pick up the pieces.
Right.
Okay, okay, that's helpful advice. And of course, I can't let you leave without talking about the biggest topic of all time, AI,
Oh,
because it's everywhere. So, what are your
yes.
thoughts on AI? Are you afraid? Are you like you into it? Give me your thoughts.
I'm definitely not afraid. One of the models that I live by, the only constant in technology is change.
Mm-hmm.
The only thing. I think that's what makes me love the industry so much, is because you always have to continue learning. You cannot just be like, oh yeah, I'm in tech, I'm a software engineer, and I just code in this, or I just focus on just this.
Right,
No, you can't, because eventually, as we're all witnessing, there's not going to be a need for you, because
right.
AI is going to come in and just take it all over. So what you need to do is really learn the ethics, the thought process of what goes into AI, and hop on that board, hop on that train, learn how you can be a project manager in AI projects, product managers in AI, learn how you can sell for those people who want to be in the tech ecosystem. Learn how you can sell AI software, really get behind it. So I feel like, um, it's going to make some interesting trends within the ecosystem, but I do feel like if people don't get on board, they will be left behind.
Fair. And like you said, it's even the point of how can I work with AI with my current role or, wherever you want to go in the future versus, just letting it kind of absorb your job. So staying
Yeah.
in front of the curve is definitely the best way that you could go.
Yeah. Staying ahead of the trends. Um, figuring out how can you work with these emerging technologies in your current position. Because maybe if you can figure that out, it could be a pitch and that's recognition for you.
Right. Again, advocating for yourself by staying
Yeah.
ahead of everything. And Lisa, you've had quite a career journey in tech and you've thrived for a very long time, as we mentioned at the top of the podcast. How have you thrived in tech for so long? And have you ever had an experience where you were like, ooh, I'm ready to get up out of here? Like, I mean, we've all had the experience, so I know you have one. But you know what I'm saying? Like when you're in the tech for so long, like there's just, you see and hear a lot. So how do
Yeah.
you stay thriving, and tell the listeners about a time where you wanted to leave but you decided to still stay?
um Wow. Okay. How do I stay thriving? Always learning. Like I mentioned, like the only way to really thrive in this industry is being able to pivot
Mm-hmm.
fast.
Mm-hmm.
Um, because if you're not pivoting and changing with these trends, yeah, you're left behind. So I'm always, for example, telling my age once again, when mobile apps really first became a thing, I wasn't taught that in college. Like, mobile development didn't exist when I was in college. Like, it really wasn't a thing. Like, I was in the era of the church, the next cell phones. So, you know, mobile apps was just like on like that forefront of like the next thing.
Yeah.
So quite naturally, I wasn't taught mobile like coding, like I wasn't taught like how to develop for a mobile app.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and when mobile apps became popular after that first iPhone dropped, I was like, oh wait, I need to learn how to build an app because why am I not learning this? You know what I did? I was in Barnes and Nobles like almost every week buying all of these books because at that time nobody was teaching that. It wasn't courses per se. Like
Yeah.
now you have all these resources that you can learn on YouTube, you know, Udemy. It's like all of these resources. I was in Barnes and Nobles buying up all these books. And I was like, oh, I'm gonna learn how to code me an app that I'm not going to be left behind.
Yeah.
So I self-taught myself mobile development because I was like, I can do this. I'm a software engineer. I can figure this out. And I literally set and practice every day. And this is before Leak Code, y'all. You know, people be like, oh, I'm using Leak Code. I'm doing all this stuff. No,
Yeah.
I sat and read these books and practice every day. And I randomly saw this advertisement to build a sports mobile app. At that time, I didn't know what it was. Um, and I applied through Craigslist. That's how this is when Craigslist was
Oh,
like a viable, it was a legit posting, like board. Now I don't know what it is anymore. And I
right.
was like, yeah, I'm gonna apply to this. At that time, I didn't know it was the NCAA. I didn't know nothing about it. And then I went in and this is before coding test, even like people weren't given tests to see if you could really code.
Yeah.
Um, I was like, I went in and I sold myself. I was like, oh yeah, like I'm self-taught. This is what I'm able to do. I showed them some of the projects that I had I had did at home on my own. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and I got hired. I'm like, this that's the initiative that people need to take to stay ahead of the trends. Like if you see AI is out here taking over, why aren't you researching how to be a part of AI?
Right.
Research it. Like that is what has kept me thriving in the technology ecosystem because I feel like that there's not one part of the ecosystem that I can't conquer. Because one thing about me, I'm gonna go find me a book and I'm gonna read it, and then I'm going to be like, yep, I'm about to do this. Give me a few months. Give me 90 days.
Yeah.
Master it. So I feel like you have to be able to train your mind to always pivot and learn new things. That's how I've been able to thrive. Um, a time where I felt like leaving. Hello, that's why I'm a consultant. Um, I know people attach me to these big companies, especially New York Times, but I've been a consultant for many, many years because technically I did leave and I just was a consultant. because now I make my own rules and I can do what I want. And when I disagree with you, I can be like, I'm not doing that shit. I'm not
Right.
doing because what are you gonna do? Okay, in my contract, fine. I'll get picked up by somebody else. There's been many times that I felt like leaving, and because I had many times where I have felt like leaving, and like I said, I'm not talking about the times, I'm talking about when I was staff at other big media corporations.
Mhm.
I left and I was like, you know what? I don't want to do this. I don't want to have to abide by your rules, your politics. I want to step out into that world of consulting because that's kind of sort of what I did under that NCAA when I was doing the mobile app. It was a contract. And I was like, you know what? I want to see if I can do these contracts like full time. That's what I want to be into. And I stepped out on faith and found a contract.
So for
And
you, like with the contracts, how, because I'm sure people are curious because there's also a lot of, especially in this economy, a lot of contract to hire type roles. How did you put yourself out there? Were you finding stuff on LinkedIn? Was it just word of mouth? How were you going about the whole process?
I'm not even a big person on LinkedIn, and that's for like personal reasons. Yeah, you didn't know. Yeah, back when I was at one of my older companies, I had like switched like jobs like 2 or 3 times, and each time I showed up at a company, it was flowers being sent to me, and I tracked it down that the only way these people can know where I'm working at is through LinkedIn. This is stalking me, and I got off LinkedIn.
I
So
mean,
it wasn't even through LinkedIn because that kind of like creeped me out. And that's not to take anything from LinkedIn. I think it's a great platform for networking, for finding jobs. It's great for what it is, but I'm a very private person at the end of the day. So I was just like, yeah, it's not for me. So it wasn't even through LinkedIn. And to be honest, I don't even know if LinkedIn was a thing. Yeah, LinkedIn has been a thing for a while. I found these contracts through either word of mouth
mhm.
or researching on some of these job boards, like like a Dice. Dice is really old school, but people still get contracts through Dice.
Oh, sure.
But a lot of my contracts recently, over like the past 5 years, have
Mhm,
been through word of mouth. I would like to say I've created a good name for myself in the media technology industry.
mhm,
Um, where they're like, "Oh, you need somebody that's gonna come in and whip this department in shape and build out this product? Oh yeah, we know Lisa." So it's been a word of mouth the most recent years, but starting out, I applied and usually it would be like those contract to hires, and you
mhm,
would start off as like a W-2, and then I formed my own corporation. And I said, well, actually, I don't want to go through your company. Give me a C to C, which is a corp to corp.
mhm.
I have my own company, and they're like, oh, okay, cool. That's even easier. So that's kind of sort of how I did that.
Okay, let's break that down a little bit just because I don't want everybody running out. It'd be LLC Twitter, it'd be out here
Yeah. Oh my God. No,
taking the
please.
message wrong. So when you were doing the contracts and you were doing it just like as an individual, it was just like your W-2.
1099 or W-2.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And then you created your own corporation or your own business and started doing it C to C, and then that's how you were getting contracts through your corporation. But this was after you made an official corporation
Right.
to do the business with. We're
Yes,
talking
and I
like,
sustained my name in the industry as well too.
right,
Like I just didn't go do it on my first rodeo. No.
right, right.
So it was like well within a contract when I was like, um, somebody came up to me and was like, you need to create a corporation of some sort uh for yourself because you're doing these. It was actually my accountant. You're doing these contracts and you need to be taking advantage of XYZ, like these tax breaks, and or you need to form a business of that. That's your clientele.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what made me start the agency side of UR Tech as well too, because it's like I want to focus on the bigger picture of organizations, of securing a larger contract where, yes, I'm involved, but I'm not necessarily doing the work on the day-to-day level. I'm more so overseeing the entire contract itself. So it made me say, let me scale my consulting instead of it just being a one-on-one. Let me scale and actually make this a agency, a business of where I'm consulting as a whole company. And like, yes, I have other staff members that I work with as well too, that I've hired to come in and consult and do digital transformations for these companies or for these agencies.
Mhm.
So no, to correct myself because I don't want LLC Twitter, S corp Twitter coming for my neck. I did not do it until I was well established from like this one-on-one consultant. It took me years. And then it took someone saying, what are your other plans? Because you could be doing XYZ. And I decided to scale it after I had the basics down pat.
Yes, yes. Listen, you just got to clarify. And then plus, people might be asking. So thank you for clarifying. And Lisa, we've talked about a lot today from your career to transferable skills, networking, how to advocate for yourself. But I want to know, is there anything we didn't talk about today that you think would be helpful for the listeners in the form of advice or tips for being in tech or even trying to get into the tech industry?
I know we covered a lot. I would say doing your research, the research is very important. Don't gravitate towards these jobs because of the title of the company, because of the what who the company is. Do your research. Um, be able to advocate for yourself. And like, I cannot emphasize enough the research because people will say, oh my God, you have such this cool resume. You work for every TV network. And I'd be like, there's nothing cool about some of those places. But, from the outside looking in, people would think they'd be like, oh, I want to go work at such and such. And it's like, have you talked to those employees there to see if they're happy? You know, I can't emphasize that enough. And then also doing your research thoroughly on the career that you want, which is why I started UR Tech, because I have a lot of friends that I went to college with. We all was computer science majors together. And then they're like, wait, your career and my career are took two different total trajectories. I don't like what I'm doing. That's what they would tell me. And
Mhm.
I'm like, well, did you research the job that you got before you went into it? Or before you went into that path? Like, I'm just saying, like, for example, someone that may have done IT, did you realize that, yeah, you're gonna be moving computers and working with networks and wires and stuff all day? Did you know that? Because those are things that you need to know before you go and you decide to say, I'm going to go down that path within tech. Know what that path entails. Know what that scaling looks like too, because sometimes they often feel like, well, I've hit a cap. What else can I do? Like, where else can I take my career? So think about what that path may look like for you, starting off as entry level to what? What's your end goal? What's your 5 year? What's your 10 year?
Right.
Think about those things when you're like trying to pick a path within tech. If you and that's why UR Tech is here to help you figure that out because oftentimes figuring that out on your own is hard. Um and I feel like I had to do it on my own and I don't want people to go through the same like struggles that I went through to figure out what I wanted. At that time, I just knew I was not happy being a software engineer for a company. I love programming, but I love engineering and programming on my own time. And I just couldn't figure out what it is I wanted to do. It took some time. And that's when I had to really sit and think and, get advice from different people to like really figure out like what it is I want to do. But now we have platforms for that to help you figure it out.
Exactly. And that's why I created the podcast. So you people like you could share your story and then people could hear it and take that advice. So thank you for that.